My hand shakes as I write these words, though 30 years have passed since that June morning when the heathens came. The ink pools where my trembling spreads it across the vellum, and I must pause, must steady myself against the weight of memory. I am Brother Cuthwin, an old man now, my beard gone white, my shoulders bent from decades of copying scripture in this cold stone cell. But I was young once, barely 19 summers, a novice monk at Lindisfarne when the world ended. I survived what so many holier men did not, and that truth has haunted every day since. They tell me I must write this account, that future generations must know what happened when the dragon ships came. Very well. Let me set down the truth, though my soul recoils from remembering. I see it still, as clear as the page before me now, the morning light on the waves, the salt spray catching the sun, the way everything changed in the space of a few terrible hours. God forgive me, I was there, I lived, and I have never understood why. The year was 793, the 8th year of June, though we did not know then that this date would echo through the ages as the day Christian England learned to fear. Lindisfarne was my entire world in those days, this tidal island off the Northumbrian coast, cut off from the mainland when the waters rose, connected by a causeway of sand and stone when they fell. We called it Holy Island, and it was holy. Saint Aidan himself had founded our monastery more than 150 years before, and St. Cuthbert, whose incorrupt body lay in its shrine within our church, made our home a place of pilgrimage. Kings came to pray at that shrine. Bishops sought wisdom from our abbot. We were a beacon of learning, of prayer, of God's grace made manifest in cold northern seas. I had come to Lindisfarne 3 years earlier, a boy from a village inland, sent by parents who could not feed all their children, but who wished to give at least one son to God. The monastery accepted me, and I threw myself into the life with the fervor of youth. I learned to read Latin, to copy the sacred texts with careful strokes of my quill, to rise before dawn for lauds, and sing the hours through each day until Compline sent us to our beds. The work was hard, the cold penetrating, the food sparse, barley bread and fish mostly, washed down with weak ale. But there was peace in it, or so I thought, a certainty that we were doing God's work, that our prayers rose like incense to heaven, that the world beyond our island was somehow kept safe by our devotions. I remember the omens. How could I not, could I? They began early that year, in the dark months when winter still gripped the land. Great whirlwinds tore across Northumbria, uprooting trees and stripping thatch from roofs. Lightning split the sky on cloudless nights. And then the dragons came, not real beasts, but fiery shapes that writhed across the heavens, serpents of light that made the bravest men fall to their knees in terror. I saw them myself, standing in the monastery courtyard with the other novices, our necks craned back, our mouths open in awe and fear. The dragons twisted and coiled, red and gold against the black vault of night. And we did not know what they meant, but we knew they meant something. Bishop Higbald, our abbot, a kindly man with a gentle voice, led us in prayer. "The Lord is showing us signs," he said, his face grave in the torchlight. "We must examine our hearts, brothers. We must root out sin and make ourselves worthy." Then came the famine. The crops had failed the year before, and by spring we were eating from stores grown dangerously low. The villagers on the mainland fared worse. We heard tales of families eating bark, of children with swollen bellies, of the old lying down to die so the young might have their portion. We gave what we could, but it was not enough. Never enough. Some of the older monks whispered that God was angry with Northumbria. 5 years past, our king Alfwald had been murdered by his own retainers, struck down in the dark like a dog. The killers had been hunted down, but one, a man named Sitka, had taken his own life and been buried in consecrated ground right here on Lindisfarne, just weeks before the heathens came. "We have sheltered a suicide and a regicide," old Brother Edmund muttered one evening as we filed from Vespers. "How can the Lord not punish us?" I did not know if he was right. I was too young to understand the politics of kings and murderers. But the omens troubled me, and the whispered fears of my elders seeped into my dreams. I began to wake in the night, heart pounding, certain that something terrible was coming. Yet when I rose for lauds each morning, when I took my place in the scriptorium and bent over the gospel I was copying, when I walked the wind-swept cliffs and watched the seabirds wheel against the clouds, I told myself that God would protect us. We were his servants. We lived only to praise him. What could touch us here, in this holy place, surrounded by the bones of saints and the prayers of the faithful? The morning of June 8th dawned clear and bright, the kind of day that makes you forget winter ever existed. I remember the quality of the light, sharp and clean, making every blade of grass stand out distinct, turning the sea to hammered silver. The tide was low, the causeway exposed, a dark line of sand connecting us to the mainland. I had been assigned to the scriptorium that day, a privilege for a novice. My hand was growing steady enough to be trusted with the lesser decorations. Simple knotwork borders, nothing like the intricate illuminations the master scribes created, but work that mattered nonetheless. I was copying a passage from the Gospel of John, my favorite. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. The words seemed especially beautiful that morning, the Latin flowing from my quill in careful strokes. Around me, other brothers bent over their own pages, the only sounds the scratch of pens, the rustle of vellum, the occasional murmur as someone consulted a reference text. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted lazy as snow. The smell of ink and parchment filled my nostrils, familiar and comforting. Peace. That is what I remember most. The profound peace of that morning. The sense that all was right with the world, that this moment could stretch on forever, unchanging and safe. The bell for terce rang out, its voice rolling across the island, calling us to prayer. I set down my quill carefully, blotted the page, and rose with the others. We filed out of the scriptorium into the bright morning, our sandals slapping against stone, our habits fluttering in the sea breeze. The church lay ahead, its walls still cool with night's shadow. I could hear the waves against the shore, the cry of gulls, the rustle of wind through the long grass that grew up to the monastery walls. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. We entered the church, moving to our places with the ease of long practice. The interior was dimmer than the day outside, lit by candles and the glow of sunlight through small windows. But what light there was caught on gold. The crosses on the altar, the jeweled covers of the great Gospels, the elaborate metalwork of St. Cuthbert's shrine. Our church was not large, but it was rich with the gifts of the faithful, treasures accumulated over generations. I took my place among the novices, hands folded, head bowed. Bishop Higbold began the office, his voice rising in the opening psalm. Deus, in adjutorium meum intende, O God, come to my assistance. We responded as one. Domine, ad adjuvandum me festina. O Lord, make haste to help me. The Latin words wrapped around me like a familiar cloak. I closed my eyes, letting the rhythm of prayer carry me, feeling the presence of my brothers around me, the solid stone beneath my feet, the sacred space holding us all in its embrace. This was what I had been born for, I thought. This moment, this prayer, this offering of voice and heart to God. I do not know what made me open my eyes. Some sound, perhaps, barely audible beneath the chanting, a shout far off, or the cry of a bird that sounded wrong somehow. But I opened them, and I glanced toward the doorway, and I saw Brother Oswald, one of the older monks who had been working in the vegetable garden, framed in the bright rectangle of morning light. He was running. I had never seen Brother Oswald run. He was 60 if he was a day, his joints stiff with age. But he was running now, his face white, his mouth open, and even from where I stood I could see the terror in his eyes. He burst into the church gasping, and the chanting faltered, died. Bishop Higbold turned, frowning. Brother Oswald, what? Ships, Oswald wheezed, clutching at his chest. Ships in the bay, strange ships, dragon prows, men coming ashore. God save us, they have weapons. And then we heard it. a sound that did not belong in that holy place, a sound that ripped through the peace like an axe through flesh, the war cry of raiders, guttural and savage, rolling up from the shore, the thunder of boots on stone, the crash of wood splintering as the monastery gates gave way. For a moment we stood frozen. I think our minds could not comprehend what was happening. This was Lindisfarne. This was Holy Island. Who would dare attack us? What men could be so lost to God that they would raise weapons against monks at prayer? Then the first of them appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the sun, and I understood that we were about to die. He was enormous, or seemed so to my terrified eyes, broad-shouldered, wrapped in furs despite the warmth of the day, an iron helmet on his head and a great bearded axe in his hands. Behind him came others, pouring through the doorway like a flood, weapons raised, faces twisted in snarls of eagerness. They were shouting in a tongue I did not know, harsh syllables that sounded like the barking of dogs. I saw gold in their eyes, not the color, but the hunger, the way their gazes fixed on the altar, the shrine, the jeweled gospel covers. And I saw something else, a joy in violence, a lust for destruction that froze my blood. These were not soldiers come to conquer. These were wolves come to slaughter sheep. Bishop Higbald stepped forward, raising his hands. "Peace," he cried in Latin, then again in the Saxon tongue. "Peace! We are men of God. We have no weapons. We mean you no harm." The leader, I assumed he was the leader, for he was first through the door, did not even slow. He swung his axe in a wide, casual arc, and the blade caught Bishop Higbald in the side of the neck. Blood sprayed in a wide fan, bright red in the candlelight, spattering across the white altar cloth. The bishop fell without a sound, crumpling like an empty sack, and the raider stepped over him as though he were no more than a stone in a path. Then chaos erupted. The heathens fell upon us like a storm. I saw Brother Edmund, who had worried about God's punishment, try to run and take an axe between his shoulder blades. I saw young Brother Aldrich, barely older than myself, cut down as he knelt in prayer. I saw the raiders swarm over the altar, seizing the golden crosses, ripping the jeweled covers from the Gospels, and casting the sacred pages aside like rubbish. I saw blood, so much blood, spreading across the stone floor, pooling around bodies, splashing up the walls. The air filled with screams, the screams of dying men, of monks begging for mercy in Latin and Saxon, of the raiders laughing and shouting in their savage tongue. The smell hit me then, cutting through even the copper reek of blood. The smell of the raiders themselves, sweat and salt and something wild, like animals. And beneath it all, the sickly sweet smell of opened bowels, of death come sudden and brutal. I did not decide to hide. My body moved without thought, pure animal instinct taking over. I dropped to the floor and crawled, scrambling over the legs of fleeing monks, feeling warm blood soak through my habit at the knees. I made for the side chapel, where we kept the vestments and sacred vessels, a small alcove behind a half wall. Bodies lay everywhere. I crawled over Brother Cenwulf, whose dead eyes stared at nothing, whose blood still pumped from a terrible wound in his belly. I reached the alcove and pressed myself into the corner, curling small, pulling a fallen tapestry over myself. And there I lay, shaking, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst from my chest, listening to the slaughter continue. Through a gap in the tapestry, I could see a slice of the church. I watched the raiders strip the shrine of St. Cuthbert, prying loose the silver fittings, stuffing jeweled reliquaries into leather sacks. I watched them drag monks from their hiding places and cut them down without mercy. I watched one raider, a young man with long blonde hair, hold up a golden chalice and laugh before smashing it against the wall, apparently just for the joy of destruction. I watched them set fire to the choir stalls, the flames catching quick and spreading, filling the church with smoke. And I watched, God forgive me, when they found Brother Godric hiding behind the altar and took their time with him, using their knives, making him scream until his voice gave out, and still they continued. I lay there and watched and did nothing. I was 19 years old. I had never held a weapon. I had taken vows of peace and obedience, and I was so afraid that my muscles locked, that I could not have moved if I wanted to, that I lay there whimpering like a child while my brothers died within arm's reach. How long did it last? I cannot say. Time lost all meaning. It felt like hours, like days, like an eternity of blood and fire and screaming. But the sun had barely moved when silence finally fell, broken only by the crackle of flames and the low voices of the raiders as they gathered their plunder. I heard them moving through the church, their boots crunching on broken glass and splintered wood, heard the clink of gold being loaded into sacks. I heard one of them pause near my hiding place, so close I could hear his breathing, and I stopped breathing myself, certain he would tear away the tapestry and find me. But he moved on, and after a time that felt like years, I heard them leaving, their voices receding, the sound of their boots fading. Still, I did not move. I lay there, in the blood-soaked dark beneath the tapestry, my body rigid with terror, convinced that if I stirred even slightly, they would return and finish what they had started. The smoke grew thicker, making me cough, but I stifled the sound against my sleeve, tears streaming from my stinging eyes. The heat from the fires intensified. I could feel it through the tapestry, could hear the roar as flames found new fuel. And slowly, I began to hear other sounds, moans, wet, bubbling coughs, the soft crying of men not yet dead. And from outside, a new sound, the shouts of the raiders on the beach, the creak of wood and rope, the splash of oars. They were leaving. They had taken what they wanted, and now they were leaving, sailing back to whatever frozen hell had spawned them. And we were still here, those of us who remained, broken and burning in the ruins of our holy place. I do not know how long I waited before I finally moved, long enough for the smoke to grow so thick I knew I would die if I stayed, for the heat to become unbearable, for my terror to be overcome by the simple animal need to breathe. I pushed the tapestry aside and crawled out from my hiding place, keeping low beneath the worst of the smoke, my eyes streaming, my lungs burning. The church was an inferno. The choir stalls blazed, the flames licking up the walls, the ancient timbers groaning as fire consumed them. The bodies lay where they had fallen, dark shapes in the smoke, and I tried not to look at them, tried not to see the twisted limbs, the spreading pools of blood, the faces of men I had prayed beside that very morning. I made for the door, crawling over rubble and corpses, my hands slipping in blood. The stone floor was hot enough to burn through my habit at the knees. A timber crashed down behind me, sending up a shower of sparks, and I lunged forward in panic, scrambling the last few feet to the doorway and tumbling out into the bright, clean air of afternoon. I lay on the grass outside the church, gasping, coughing up black phlegm, my body shaking with reaction. The sun was still high. It was barely past midday, though it felt like a lifetime had passed since terce. The sky was the same clear blue, the sea the same sparkling silver. The beauty of the day mocked the horror we had endured, and I wept then, great heaving sobs that tore from my chest, curled on my side in the grass like a child. "Brother Cuthwin." The voice was weak, barely more than a whisper, but I recognized it. I raised my head and saw Brother Edric, one of the scribes, lying a few paces away. He had dragged himself from the scriptorium, I thought, or perhaps from the chapter house. A terrible wound gaped in his side, and his habit was black with blood. His face was grey, his lips white. I crawled to him, took his hand. It was cold despite the warmth of the day. "Edric," I whispered. "Hold on. I will find help. I will—" "No help," he breathed. "Gone, all gone. Did you see them, Cuthwin? Did you see the heathens?" "I saw them." "Why?" His eyes searched mine, desperate for an answer I could not give. Why would God allow this? We were his servants. We lived only to praise him. Why did he not protect us? I had no answer. I still have no answer. Even now, 30 years later, sitting in my cell at Durham, where we fled with St. Cuthbert's relics, when the raiders came again and again in the years that followed. I have spent 3 decades trying to understand why God permitted the slaughter of the innocent, why he allowed heathens to desecrate his holy places, why he watched while good men died and cowards like myself lived. I have read every theological text I could find. I have prayed until my knees bled, and I am no closer to understanding than I was that day, holding Edric's cold hand as the life drained from his eyes. I do not know, I told him, and even through his pain, I saw the disappointment in his face. He had wanted comfort, assurance, some certainty that this suffering had meaning, but I had none to give. Sleep now, I whispered. Rest. God will explain when you stand before him. I hope so, Edric breathed. I truly hope so. And then he was gone, his hand going limp in mine, his eyes staring up at that mockingly beautiful sky. I closed them gently and turned away. I could hear voices now, calling out, weeping, the sounds of other survivors emerging from wherever they had hidden. I looked toward the beach and saw the ships. 3 of them, long and low with dragon prows, their sails now raised to catch the wind. Tiny figures moved on their decks, and I realized with a sick lurch of horror that some of those figures were monks, our brothers, taken as slaves. They had not killed everyone. Some they had kept, to sell in whatever heathen markets traded in human flesh. I watched the ships grow smaller, watched them diminish to specks against the horizon, watched them vanish into the vast emptiness of the northern sea, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. Something that has never left me, the knowledge that the world was not safe, that God's protection was not guaranteed, that evil could strike anywhere, anytime, and all our prayers and all our faith might not be enough to stop it. I forced myself to stand, to survey the damage. The church was fully ablaze now, flames shooting through the roof. The heat so intense I had to step back. The scriptorium too was burning. I could see smoke pouring from its windows, could imagine the precious manuscripts curling and blackening in the flames. 100 years of scholarship, of careful copying, of illuminated beauty, reduced to ash. The other buildings had been ransacked but not burned, their contents scattered across the courtyard. I saw vestments trampled in the mud, prayer books torn apart, even the simple wooden bowls we ate from smashed, as though the raiders had taken joy in destroying everything we owned. And everywhere, bodies. So many bodies. I counted later, when we gathered the dead for burial. 37 brothers killed outright. Another 9 who died of their wounds in the hours and days that followed. 15 taken as slaves, never to be seen again. Out of 83 monks and novices, barely a quarter survived unharmed. We were decimated, our community shattered, our holy place violated beyond recognition. I found Bishop Higbald where he had fallen, before the altar, his blood now dried to brown stains on the stone. His face was peaceful despite the horror of his death, his eyes closed, his features composed. I knelt beside him, my hand on his cold shoulder. He had been kind to me, patient with a novice's mistakes, quick to praise and slow to punish. He had led us in prayer against the omens, had tried to protect us with the only weapons he possessed, words of peace, appeals to common humanity, and he had died for it, cut down like wheat before the scythe. I am sorry, I whispered to him, though I did not know for what I was apologizing. For surviving when he had not, for hiding while he faced the raiders, for the sins of Northumbria that some claimed had brought this judgment upon us. All of it, perhaps. All of it and more. The afternoon wore on. Those of us who could walk began the grim work of gathering the dead, laying them out in rows in the courtyard. Some were whole, or nearly so. Others were mutilated beyond recognition, hacked to pieces in the raiders' frenzy. I worked in silence, moving from body to body, trying to remember prayers, but finding my mind empty of everything but horror. My hands were red to the elbows with blood. My habit was soaked with it, stiff and heavy. The smell was overwhelming. blood and smoke and voided bowels and the sickly sweet stench of death. I gagged repeatedly, but there was nothing in my stomach to bring up, just bile that burned my throat. Brother Wulfstan found me bent over, dry heaving beside the well. He was older than I, perhaps 30, and he too had survived by hiding, in the root cellar beneath the kitchen, he told me later, buried under sacks of turnips, while the raiders ransacked the building above. His eyes had the same hollow look I felt in my own, the look of men who had seen too much and understood too little. "We must send word," he said, his voice flat, "to the mainland, to King Osred, to Alcuin in Francia. The world must know what happened here." "Why?" The word came out harsher than I intended. What good will it do? Will it bring back the dead? Will it rebuild what they destroyed? "No," Wulfstan admitted, "but they must be warned. If the heathens struck here, they may strike elsewhere, other monasteries, other churches. They must prepare, must defend themselves." "How?" I laughed, and it sounded mad even to my own ears. "How do you defend against men who appear from nowhere, who kill without mercy, who care nothing for God or man?"
"We are monks, Wulfstan. We have no weapons. We have taken vows of peace. What defense do we have against such evil?" He had no answer. Neither did I. We stood there in the ruins of our world, two survivors trying to make sense of the senseless, and found only silence. That night, I could not sleep. We had gathered in the chapter house, the only building still mostly intact, huddling together for warmth and comfort. Outside, the burned church smoldered, sending up occasional showers of sparks into the darkness. The wind had shifted, blowing from the north, and it carried with it the smell of the sea, salt and seaweed, and something else, something cold and vast and uncaring. I kept seeing them, the raiders, the heathens, the men from the dragon ships. Their faces haunted me. That young one with the blonde hair, laughing as he smashed sacred vessels. The leader, stepping over Bishop Higbald's body as though it were nothing. The one who had paused near my hiding place, so close I could have reached out and touched him. They were men, I told myself. Just men, flesh and blood, no different from us beneath their furs and iron. But they had seemed like demons, like creatures from some nightmare realm beyond the edge of the world. And the ease with which they had killed, the joy they had taken in destruction. What kind of men could do such things? What kind of world had spawned them? In the days that followed, others arrived from the mainland, villagers who had seen the smoke, a few warriors from the king's fyrd, too late to help, but eager to hear what had happened. We told them, haltingly, each survivor adding pieces to the terrible whole. The story spread like wildfire. Within a week, messengers had carried word across Northumbria. Within a month, letters had reached the great scholar Alcuin at Charlemagne's court in Francia. I remember when Alcuin's reply came, carried by a messenger who rode hard from the south. We gathered in the chapter house to hear it read aloud, hoping for comfort, for explanation, for some framework that would help us understand what we had endured. Brother Wulfstan, the eldest surviving monk, broke the seal and read in a voice that shook. "Never before has such terror appeared in Britain as we have now suffered from a pagan race. The heathens poured out the blood of saints around the altar and trampled on the bodies of saints in the temple of God like dung in the streets." We nodded. This much we knew. We had lived it. But then Wulfstan continued, and his voice grew softer, harder to hear. "Consider carefully, brothers, and examine diligently, lest perchance this unaccustomed and unheard of evil was merited by some unheard of evil practice. I do not say that formerly there were no sins, but from the days of King Aldfrith, the kings have died violent deaths. Behold, the church of St. Cuthbert, spattered with the blood of the priests of God, despoiled of all its ornaments. What assurance is there for any place, if a place so holy is unsafe? Perhaps you are unaware that the burying of the body of Sitka, a man who destroyed himself and committed other crimes, has defiled the sanctuary
which was washed by the blood of so many martyrs and shone with so many miracles. Silence fell when Wulfstan finished reading. I felt something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. Alcuin, the great Alcuin, the most learned man in Christendom, was telling us that we had deserved this, that the slaughter of the innocent, the desecration of holy places, the rape and pillage and burning, all of it was God's punishment for our sins, for the sins of kings who had died years before I was born, for the burial of a suicide I had never met. No, I said, and my voice sounded loud in the silence. Everyone turned to look at me. No, I said again, I do not accept this. Brother Cuthwin, Wulfstan began, his tone gentle but warning. You speak of matters beyond your... I speak of what I saw, I interrupted, and I was shaking now, not with fear, but with rage. I saw Brother Edmund, who worried night and day about sin and righteousness, cut down while he ran for his life. I saw Bishop Higbald, who never spoke a harsh word to anyone, murdered as he tried to make peace. I saw Brother Aldrich, barely 18, killed while he prayed. What sins had they committed? What evil had they done to deserve such deaths? We are all sinners, Wulfstan said quietly. The church teaches that God is love, I said, that he is mercy and compassion. Does mercy look like an axe in the spine? Does compassion sound like the laughter of men burning our scriptorium? Does love smell like the blood of innocent monks soaking into the stones of their own church? Cuthwin, another voice said, Brother Ceolwulf, one of the survivors who had hidden in the crypts. We must have faith. We must trust that God's purposes are beyond our understanding. Then what good is faith? I demanded. If faith means accepting that good men die and evil men prosper, that prayers go unanswered and holiness is no protection, then why believe at all? Why pray? Why live as monks if it makes no difference in the end? The silence that followed was profound. I had spoken heresy, I knew. I had questioned the foundations of everything we believed, everything we had built our lives upon, and I did not care. I was 19 years old. I had watched my brothers die, and I was drowning in questions that had no answers. Faith is not about understanding, Wulfstan said finally, his voice tired. It is about trust. God's ways are not our ways, Cuthwin. We cannot judge him by our limited mortal perspective. Perhaps this suffering serves some greater purpose we cannot see. Perhaps it tests us, refines us, makes us stronger. Or perhaps... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Perhaps Alcuin is right, and this is punishment, and we must examine our consciences and root out the sin that brought such wrath upon us. And the men who died? I asked. What of them? Are we to believe they suffered because of sins they did not commit, that they paid with their lives for the crimes of others? We are all one body in Christ, Wulfstan said. When one member sins, all suffer. This is the teaching. This is madness, I said, but quietly now, the fire going out of me. What was the point? They believed what they believed, and my raging would not change it. I was a novice, barely educated, with no authority to challenge the wisdom of scholars like Alcuin. And yet I could not make myself accept it. I could not look at the memory of Bishop Higbald's kind face and tell myself he had deserved to die. I could not think of young Aldrich, who had loved singing the psalms with such pure joy, and believed that God had wanted him slaughtered. I could not square the teachings I had learned of a loving Father who numbered the hairs on our heads and cared for the smallest sparrow, with the God who had watched raiders cut down his servants and done nothing to stop them. We rebuilt after a fashion. The survivors worked through that summer and into autumn, clearing rubble, salvaging what could be saved, trying to resurrect some shadow of what we had been. The church was a total loss. The stone walls stood, smoke blackened and cracked, but the roof was gone, the interior gutted by fire. We held services in the chapter house instead, our voices small and uncertain, the prayers feeling hollow in the wake of such devastation. King Osred sent money and supplies, though less than we needed. The kingdom itself was poor, and there were many demands on the royal purse. Other monasteries sent what they could spare, but we were diminished, broken, a fraction of what we had been. Many of the survivors left in the months after the raid, returning to their families or seeking other monasteries further from the coast. I cannot blame them. Every time we looked at the sea, we remembered. Every ship on the horizon made our hearts race, wondering if the raiders had returned. The peace we had known, the certainty that Lindisfarne was safe, was gone forever. We lived in fear now, and some could not bear it. I stayed, though I often wondered why. Part of it was stubbornness, a refusal to let the heathens drive me from my home. Part was duty. We needed every able body to rebuild. But if I am honest, part was also paralysis. I did not know where else to go. The wider world seemed even more dangerous than Lindisfarne, and at least here, I understood the danger, could name it, and watch for it. And perhaps, too, I stayed because of guilt. I had survived when better men had died. The least I could do was honor their memory by remaining, by keeping alive the community they had died for. It was a poor reason, a weak reason, but it kept me on the island through those dark months when the nights grew long and the wind howled like the voices of the dead. The years passed. More raids came, not to Lindisfarne at first, but to other parts of the coast. We heard reports from other monasteries, other churches, all telling similar tales. Dragon ships appearing without warning, warriors with axes and swords, slaughter and plunder and fire. The heathens had discovered how rich and undefended the churches of England were, how easy it was to strike and flee before any resistance could be mounted. They came in increasing numbers, year after year, until it seemed the entire northern world was aflame with their violence. In 794, they struck the monastery at Jarrow. In 795, Iona and Skye. The sacred places of Christendom, the centers of learning and prayer, fell one by one before the pagan onslaught, and we could do nothing but pray and hide and die. Some of the kings began building defenses, raising walls around monasteries, stationing warriors to guard them, but it was too little, too late. The raiders adapted, struck where defenses were weak, moved faster than any army could respond. They were like a plague of locusts, descending from the sea to devour and destroy, then vanishing back into the northern mists from which they came. In 875, 82 years after that first terrible morning, the surviving monks of Lindisfarne fled the island for good, carrying with them the incorrupt body of St. Cuthbert, and what few treasures the raiders had not yet stolen. I was gone by then, long since transferred to Durham, where the bishop thought I might be of more use. But I heard about it, the final abandonment of Holy Island, and I wept for it. The place that had been my home, that had shaped me and scarred me, left to the wind and the waves and the ghosts of the dead. We wandered for years after that, we keepers of Cuthbert's shrine, moving from place to place as the raids continued, never safe, never settled. It was not until 995 that the saint's body found its final resting place in Durham, in the great cathedral built to house it. By then I was an old man, my beard white, my hands twisted with age. By then, most of the men who had survived the raid were dead, and I was one of the last who remembered that June morning when the world changed. I am writing this in Durham, in a cell in the monastery attached to the cathedral. Outside my window, I can hear the sounds of construction. They are still building the cathedral, still raising walls and towers to honor the saint whose body we carried so far. It will be magnificent when it is finished, they tell me. A monument to faith, to perseverance, to the triumph of God's church over the darkness. I nod when they say such things, but in my heart I do not believe it. We did not triumph. We survived, but that is not the same thing. The heathens won, in the end. They destroyed what we had built, killed our brothers, drove us from our homes. They forced us to understand that faith is not a shield, that prayer is not armor, that all our devotion and all our righteousness could not save us from men with axes and the will to use them. This is the truth I have lived with for 30 years, the truth I must set down before I die, so that those who come after will know God did not protect us. Perhaps he could not. Perhaps he chose not to. Perhaps he does not exist at all, though I dare not speak that thought aloud, and writing it now makes my hand shake so badly I must pause and steady myself. I do not know if God is real. I do not know if our prayers reach heaven or disappear into empty air. I do not know if there is justice beyond this world or only the cold and final darkness of the grave. All I know is what I saw, what I lived through, and what I have carried with me every day since. But here is the other truth, the one that confuses me most of all. I still pray. Even now, doubting and questioning and scarred by memory, I still rise before dawn and sing the hours. I still bend my stiff knees on cold stone floors and mouth the Latin words I learned as a boy. I still copy scripture with my trembling hand, still create beauty from ink and vellum, still add my small light to the great work of keeping knowledge alive. Why? I have asked myself this question 10,000 times. If I do not believe, or am not sure I believe, why continue? Why not simply walk away, admit that faith is a lie and God is absent, and all our suffering means nothing? I think the answer is this. I continue because I must. Because even if God is silent, even if heaven is empty, even if all our prayers are nothing but words spoken into void, the act of faith itself has meaning. It is a defiance of the darkness, a refusal to surrender to despair. When I pray, I am saying that beauty matters, even if beauty dies, that goodness has value, even if evil triumphs, that love is worth the cost, even when it brings only pain. The heathens taught me that nothing is safe, that no place is sacred, that death can come for anyone at any time. But they also taught me, though they did not intend it, that we must choose what we stand for. We must decide, each of us, whether to live in fear or in hope, whether to curse the darkness or light a candle, whether to despair or to endure. I choose to endure, not because I am certain of God, but because I am certain of this: we are stronger than we know. We can survive horrors that should break us. We can rebuild from ashes. We can carry our dead in our hearts and still find reasons to wake each morning and face the day. This is faith, not as certainty, but as choice, not as knowledge, but as courage. And it is enough. It has to be enough. I think often of the men who died that day. I see their faces in my dreams, hear their voices in the wind off the sea. Sometimes I imagine them watching me from whatever place the dead inhabit, judging me for surviving when they did not. Other times I imagine them at peace, beyond pain and fear, and I envy them. But mostly, I try to honor them by living, by continuing the work they were killed for, by keeping alive the community they died to protect. We are few now, scattered across England in monasteries and churches, but we remember. We tell the stories. We preserve the learning. We light the candles against the dark. The heathens destroyed Lindisfarne, but they did not destroy what Lindisfarne meant. The idea that knowledge matters, that beauty has value, that dedicating your life to something greater than yourself is worthy. That idea survives. It survives in manuscripts like this one, copied by arthritic hands in cold cells. It survives in the songs we sing, the prayers we speak, the buildings we raise stone by stone. It survives in memory, in the stories we tell of what was lost and what endures. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that is all any of us can hope for, to add our small light to the great tapestry of human striving, to do our work as best we can, to face whatever darkness comes with as much courage as we can muster, to survive, to remember, to continue. I am old now, and I feel death approaching. My breath comes short, my heart beats irregular, my bones ache with a cold that no fire can touch. Soon I will lie down for the last time, and someone else will write the story of my passing, will add my name to the long list of brothers who have gone before. When that day comes, I do not know what I will find, heaven or hell or nothing at all. But I will face it as I have tried to face every day since that terrible morning when the dragon ships came, with my eyes open my doubt acknowledged, and my faith, however fragile, still intact. I survived the raid on Lindisfarne. I lived when better men died. I carried the memory of that day for 30 years, let it shape me and scar me, wrestled with questions that have no answers and doubts that have no resolution. And in the end, all I can say is this: I endured. We endured. And perhaps that is victory enough. Let those who read this account in years to come know that we were here, that we suffered, that we questioned, and that we kept going anyway. Let them know that faith is not certainty, but courage, not knowledge, but choice, not the absence of doubt, but the decision to hope despite it. Let them know that we were human, flawed and frightened and sometimes failing, but that we tried, in our small ways, to bring light into the world. And let them know that the darkness, terrible as it was, did not win. It changed us. It wounded us. It taught us that safety is an illusion and that God's protection is not guaranteed. But it did not break us. We are still here. The light still burns. And as long as there are men and women willing to tend it, willing to copy manuscripts and sing prayers and tell stories and remember, the darkness will never wholly triumph. This is my testimony. This is my truth. I was Brother Cuthwin of Lindisfarne, and I survived. May God, if he exists, have mercy on us all. The fire burns low. The voice falls silent. Rest now. The history remains.